Reagan.
Reagan, yes. Reagan was into astrology, and you know how astrologists are.
Well, no, but Reagan's entire thing about peace through violence.
Right, yeah.
Basically, peace through violence, like, that was. You take every single movie that we're going to talk about from the 90s and or the 80s and how it's problematic and all of these things and all that, you can basically sum it up as peace through violence.
Yeah, yep.
That
I mean,
just dawned on me.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's, you're scratching the surface there. There's plenty of people who are basically taking every single problem that we have today and tracing it back to the Reagan administration.
Well, I mean, like, well, okay, that was a problematic administration, dude.
to say the least, yeah.
I mean, yeah, you can't. Maybe you can't blame literally. I mean, you can't blame literally everything, but there's too much that you can blame on that.
Yeah.
And yeah, unfortunately, like I got family members that are like, Reagan is the greatest president that this country has ever seen, and then I ask, why?
Right, yeah.
And then it's just, but the response to that, it's never backed up by anything. It's just that's how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, if I made a statement like that, I wouldn't want to start defending it either because I would know exactly what I would sound like.
Yeah,
Yeah, I wouldn't want to go into detail. Like, pretty much anybody who says that's just how I feel about something or like that's just how I view it, in my eyes, you're too ashamed to explain it.
Well, okay, see, that hurts considering how often I use that when describing what I think of these movies. That seems like a trap, sir.
Politically, let's go with that. Let's dive in politically.
Okay, all right.
Because I mean, like realistically, like if you're talking to a liberal, and this is one thing that really kind of bothers me in some form about a lot of the left-leaning politics, is basically if a right-winger has a problem with it, you'll have a left-winger go, doesn't like it because they want to have sex with that person. It's like, that is really reductive. And that is not the entirety of the issue. But basically, what they're saying about that person is like every homophobe is secretly gay. Like, you've heard that.
I have heard that, and here's the thing. I have an addendum to that. And I am not, and I'm willing to admit that I have no scientific data in this. This is very much a, me having been, sequestered a little bit longer after the pandemic than most, and I'm alone with my thoughts a lot. So I come up with these theories. I am coming around to the theory that there are way, way, way more bisexual people in the world than we realize. I'm starting to think that it's possible that bisexuality is the actual default and that just being actually gay and actually straight is the minority.
I could actually buy that.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that I could actually see. I read something today that was kind of interesting. Monogamy is not natural.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Polyamory is natural. We automatically are born and we are created with the ability to love as many and everybody and everything. Yep. We have to societally be taught to only love one person.
Right.
I read that today and I was like, damn, that is a wicked good point.
We are. It is shocking when you think about it. The number of things that we consider to be like absolute tenements to human society are actually brand spanking new. That are like not even just like, less than 100 years old, but like may even some ways be less than 50 years old. Mm-hmm. To go back to when you were talking about you're constantly thinking about adopting a kid, and I was like, yeah, I was a great father because I was only a part-time dad. That made it easy. I genuinely believe it is unnatural for anybody to be a full-time parent. I think one or two people raising their kids by themselves is against nature. I think the phrase "it takes a village to raise a child" is not a metaphor. I think is an actual genetic fact.
Oh, that's where you were going. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying like let's kick them out
No. I'm saying it's literally
Let him
like
figure it out. You know.
no. I mean, like you literally. I think in my estimation, I think it takes a minimum of 8 people to raise one child. Bare minimum, 8 people to raise one child. Now, granted, those 8 people can raise up to 4 children, but if you get a fifth child in there, you need 8 more people to help out. Like that's what I think is the bare minimum of properly raising
I'd like
children.
to see your breakdown and see the how those go. I would like to see that. Uh, there is a study that came out that it's a rough one because the study said that. Oh fuck it! No, we're talking science. This is just what the study said.
Right.
Children raised by a single father have on average and actually above the average basically wind up the same way as children who are raised by two parents. Children who are raised by a single mother wind up messed up
Huh.
often.
Interesting.
That
That is controversial.
that is like I said, I wasn't sure I wanted to say that. However,
Yeah.
but that's the thing. It's science.
But
Like,
and well, and
it's
here's the
science,
thing. I
it's a
think
study, it's how it goes, and there's evidence and research to actually support that.
if I were to
why?
just make a conjecture right off the bat as to why that is, I think it's because there's way more social pressure on a single mother to do it on her own. A single father, no one thinks twice about him asking for help. Because mothers are supposed to be naturally maternal and capable of taking care of their children, and want to take care of their children. So if a mother says,
I went
"I
a
am tired of
much
being
different
I'm
way.
tired of being a mom. Can you, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, can you take the kids for a few days so that I can go be happy for the first time in a while?"
That's a thing.
Yeah, that's a thing that, when it happens, mothers are usually thought less of for it, and so they're under a lot of pressure to not ask for that unless it is literally like, they're unless their therapist tells them to, assuming they can afford one. But with fathers, like, are you kidding me? Father is going like, "Hey, can you take the kids for the weekend?" Like, no one bats an eye at that. They may say no because they're like, "I don't want your shitty kids," but no
Okay,
one,
so
no one.
I know that you were a single father,
Mhm.
but I was raised by a single mother,
Okay.
and nah, man, like she didn't catch heat for needing help or anything like that. But like when she wanted help, like when she reached out for help, like a lot of people stepped in for like babysitting, coming over, helping out. Like us would go hang out over there. Like
Okay,
I
so I
don't know,
could be wrong
I
about
just
that.
don't know where you're getting
That was
that
just
from.
my
Yeah.
first guesstimation because from what I have seen
See,
around,
here's my
it
count.
seems like mothers are under more pressure to be motherly than fathers are to be fatherly.
I disagree.
Okay.
Like to be a single mother and have the children, it doesn't take that much. To be a single father and have custody of your children, it takes a lot.
Oh, sure, yeah.
You can be a cracked out hoe bag and everything like that. And you can still wind up with custody over your kid.
Oh, I am aware of that.
Yeah, but you have to be a damn good dude to get custody over your children. You have to be much more financially secure. You have to be much more mentally stable than the average person. Like the fathers that actually get to have their kids and all that and gain custody, they're pretty much set. So
Yeah.
based off of that study, like
Well,
that's more where I was
that
taking
does
that.
that does make more sense. Yes, the sample size of single fathers is a lot smaller and a lot less diverse. That is a
Well,
very
yeah,
good point.
because the average man gets his kids taken from him unless he is a champion of men. The
Right,
average
yeah.
woman, she can say, "I don't want to be with you," and that man doesn't get to have his children anymore. Like, it's not like That's way more where I was taking that because,
And that does make sense, yes.
yeah, I don't want to take like an anti-woman standpoint over like,
Mm-hmm.
nah, that's not true. Women don't have that pressure. It's like they do, but I don't think men don't have that pressure to the degree that it's like, oh, he's a man. He gets like it's easier for him. He's got this, like all that. It's like no, when a man still needs help, there's still every dude around him calling him a little bitch, saying that he's too weak and everything, and like no. You had sex, you made your decisions. Sack the fuck up, son. It's time for you to be a man and make your sacrifices and do what you got to do.
Okay,
You
yeah,
say
I can
that
see
men have it easier in that regard. That is not the experience I have ever seen. That's why I wanted to know where you were getting it from.
Okay. No, I was getting it from the fact that, like, yeah, in my experience, it was very much a case of like, yeah, if I wanted to be a part-time father, no one ever gave me any shit for it, as opposed to of the mothers that I knew, if they wanted to be part-time mothers, they immediately felt shitty about even like considering it because they knew everyone would think less of them for not wanting to be around their kids all the time.
Okay, but is that an insecurity that they felt other people would think this about them, or is that something that actually happened to any of them?
Hard to say, honestly.
Because that's the thing. Like, I'm not gonna base something off of something that somebody is insecure about. If that story actually exists, the story is the thing that I'm gonna latch on to.
Okay, all right, that's fair.
Like,
That's fair.
yeah, that that is a cut clip that I do not know is gonna if it's gonna get posted. That was.
But
Yeah.
I stand by it. Mother or father, no one should be raising their kids on their own. Period. That is that,
No,
and that
but that's why
only,
you got uncles, you got aunts, you
yeah,
got grandparents.
and
Like,
again, that used to be a thing. We used to have multi-generational households in very, in the middle of neighborhoods that were tight knit communities, and it wasn't until
how
banks
many
found
generations
out
are under your roof?
it's a le- it's still a less
I
common
had to.
thing
I
now.
had to.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
had
I'm
to.
aware, and that's part of what's kind of helped this thing along is because
Yeah,
it's I'm surprised at how much easier things got.
yeah.
um, and that's kind of my, and it was even the fact that like when I look at now that my kids are adults and I look back and I go like, man, I did a pretty good job with them. How did I do that? Oh,
I like your kids.
I was not
I think you got
around.
good
That's
kids,
what
man.
yeah, I had them every other weekend and I made those weekends count. But other than that, like I wasn't someone who was constantly saying like go to your room because I'm sick of looking at you,
Mm.
because they weren't there all the time. It
No,
was
you never
easy
got
for
sick of
me.
them.
Yeah, exactly. And so it made it much easier to, it was easy to love them because I didn't have to do it all the time, and yeah, that's kind of, and I stand by that. And like I said, like this came from like things that we think are tenement to society are actually very new because we used to have multi-generational families in tight-knit communities where you literally did have, even in an urban center, you had a small village available to help you raise your child,
Hmm.
until we got to the point where banks were going, hey, move out to the burbs and buy a house all by yourself, just you and your wife, because the banks realized they were making money off of mortgage loans, and so they started pushing housing sales as fast as and hard as they could. That's a very, very new thing. The idea that the idea of the nuclear family and a couple raising all their kids all by themselves, that's barely 3 generations old,
Hmm.
maybe 4 tops.
No, I mean, dude, you go to the Brady Bunch. You had adult children living there, setting themselves up, getting ready for life. You go
Hmm.
to like most movies, TV shows going back not that long ago. You had, the, the parents would still be living with people and stuff like that. The guest house or the attachment to the house where like the mother-in-law, like things like that, like those types of things would be much more common.
Hmm.
Now, holy crap. After hour. Or is this week all an after hour? Like,
we'll get to the movies eventually, I'm sure.
right?
But it kind of makes sense. It can make sense to talk about the stuff with the Burbs because we're talking about like these guys who are, for all intents and purposes, living the dream of what the 80s said you were supposed to be doing. And it's literally driving them insane. They've gone insane because everything's exactly what they were told it was supposed to be. And we're only like just now waking up from that. Some 30 years later, we're like going, oh my God, that was a terrible idea. We never should have done that.
And pretty much, I mean, even people in my family, like, they're the ones who always talked about independence and always talked about this and the pride and all this and all that, pushing all that on me. Day after I graduated high school, coming and waking me up and going, remember when you were 15 and said that you can't wait to get the hell out of here? Get out.
Yep.
Like, things like that. Now those people have other family members living with them, paying their mortgage and doing all this stuff. It's like, so thanks for screwing me over and putting me in that position when just a few years later you're sitting there going, oh, please come and live with me and pay 95% of my mortgage.
Right.
Like, damn.
Yeah.
That's why. Like, that's what I was saying. I was gonna like jump into that on the half hour because I'm kind of talking a little bit of trash.
The crazy
about my
thing is
there.
too is like this is something that I thought I was like a super smart dad. I came up with this thing to tell my kids that I thought was like I'm a freaking genius. And then literally just like 2 weeks ago, comedian Jimmy Carr basically said the same thing, and I was like, oh God damn it, And I've been telling my kids, I was like, look, humans aren't supposed to do anything alone. All right. One human by themselves is basically just food. Like a goldfish, if it's properly motivated, could kill you. All right. You're not super, there's nothing special about you. 3 humans, however, working together has even odds against a grizzly bear. So don't do anything alone. That's the lesson. And then, and I was like, man, I am a genius father coming up for that. And then, I saw a clip of comedian Jimmy Carr. He said like, oh yeah, you drop 1 human in the forest, you fed the animals. You drop 100 humans in the forest, you've introduced a new apex predator. And I was like, okay, so me and fucking Jimmy Carr of all people, we're the ones who get it.
I really like Jimmy Carr.
He's okay. Like I don't dislike him. He's just never really made me laugh. I get why people like him. I just have never laughed at him,
I would say he is the most successful edge comedian right now.
Yeah, you know what? I could agree with that. I could see that. Yep. Yeah.
Like when you have like a bunch of people that are like, oh, they're just jokes, you can't. It's like no. See, here's the thing. Mm-hmm. A joke is funny.
Right.
What you're being is a dick. And you want us to laugh at the things that you're saying, but you're not being funny about it. If you are being a dick and you're funny, I may laugh and then judge myself for having laughed.
Yeah.
But that's when you're a good comedian. That's when you are actually funny. When you can make somebody who doesn't find the subject material funny laugh about it, then you're a comedian. If you can't make people laugh, it's not their fault you're not funny. That's you. Jimmy Carr is a very insulting person. His opinions and views, they are very, very common. You're just not supposed to talk about them because they're not popular right now. However, people still feel that way. And Jimmy Carr is clever enough. He's smart enough. His deliveries are good enough, and his performances are good enough. He knows how to access those things without being insulting. And
I literally have
is what makes
nothing
a good
against him.
Comedian.
Yeah,
see, and that's the thing.
Yeah,
very
like I said,
liberal people.
And it may just be like I feel the same way
are.
about Fred Armisen. I do not find Fred Armisen funny. I don't understand why people do. Jimmy Carr, on the other hand, I do get why people find him funny. I like him as a person. I've just never laughed at his jokes, but I do get why they're funny.
That get me.
Yeah.
There's a few. I like when he talks about people who get offended by stuff, and like it's like when people ask me for an apology, and I'm just like, oh, I'm sorry. They're like, well, you didn't mean that. It's like, oh, so you know that people can say things without meaning them.
Right.
It's like, you're good. You're good. Yep. Like, that's a good comedian. That's somebody that will make you look at yourself, laugh at yourself, look at something that you've done in a situation that you've been in, and call yourself on it in a funny way. Like, that's why, like, that's the thing. When people, like Jerry Seinfeld going off about how wokeness has killed comedy. No, it hasn't.
No,
man.
Yeah.
It really hasn't.
Really
Comedy is tough. Jerry, you're still funny. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah, of all the people in the world to be complaining about wokeness, Jerry Seinfeld, like, I can't think of anyone that this has had no effect on. Like, why would he be complaining about it?
That's a weird something one. I really don't get, because he is the example of how it doesn't matter whether you're woke or not.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Like, he is the example. So to hear him say that was weird. To hear, like, Ron White or Bill Engvall or Jeff Foxworthy, if one of them went off on something like that, it would make a little bit more sense. Sure. But at the same time...
those aren't guys that I follow, I'm aware of, but I don't think I've heard of Jeff Foxworthy complaining about it.
No, I don't think so. I mean, because country humor doesn't need to be against, like, wokeness. Like,
he's never for all of his quote unquote redneckness. He's never struck me as I think Jeff Dunham is more racist than Jeff Foxworthy is.
I have never understood how even when Jeff Dunham was like first starting off, I'm like, how is this happening right now? Like, I remember looking at that, it's like, okay, that's a little black puppet. He's voicing it.
Yeah.
How is this happening right now? I laughed the entire time. I sang Ahmed the Dead Terrorist Christmas songs when I was in Iraq. I thought he was funny, mostly because of Ahmed, and I was in the service at the time that absolutely slayed
gallows humor. We all get it. Yeah.
Yeah, like I crushed me. Peanut, hilarious. Jalapeno on a stick, hilarious. No. I actually really... Damn, I actually like Jeff Dunham. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
I'll give him that.
But yeah, that's the thing. Is like for redneck versus non-redneck and the stereotypes attached therefore, how is Jeff Dunham clearly more problematic than Jeff Foxworthy, of all people?
Well, that's kind of because country humor is not racist. Like, you have racists that are out in the country and have country humor, but country humor on its own is not racist. Okay. Like, the crap you have to deal with out in the country, working on a farm, working on your tractor, stuff going down, everything like that, that stuff is... Like,
and that just further proves the point that, yes, the quote-unquote wokeness is ruining comedy is not a thing, because Jeff Foxworthy is doing fine.
Yeah. Actually, the Blue Collar Comedy Group, are you familiar?
I am, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Ron White and Larry the Cable Guy and one other guy.
Thank you. Larry the Cable Guy was the one that I couldn't think of.
Okay.
I actually don't think any of them are actually problematic. Like, I think back to their special, I think back to their jokes. I mean, Larry the Cable Guy, he was making fun of his sister more than anything. So, yeah, I feel bad for her a little bit, but I actually don't even know if she was a real person.
Right, that's true, yeah.
Because Larry the Cable Guy isn't even a real
character,
person.
Yeah.
It's a character that, Have you ever heard him talk, like, for real?
No, I don't think I have. I've heard people who have, they talked about it. They were like, they looked like they just found out Santa Claus wasn't real. It was amazing.